Well, joining me now to debate this are from Los Angeles, Jemima Pierre. She is a professor in the Department of African American Studies and the Department of Anthropology at the University of California. Monique Clesca joins us from Miami, a Haitian journalist and a civil society activist. And in New York, we have Brian Concannon, a lawyer and board member at the Institute for Justice and Democracy in Haiti. Good to have you all with us. Jemima Pierre, if I could start with you then. What has brought us to this point in Haiti? What are the conditions that have fueled the current situation as you see it?
Well, I'm glad you asked this question because nothing happens in Haiti in a vacuum. What has brought us to this position is the fact that Haiti is under occupation by a foreign force, foreign entities. So you have a coup d'etat that was established back in 2004. You've had a UN occupation, a UN office in Haiti, the BNU office. The UN was in Haiti for 17 years and left an office behind. They're the ones in the core group that make decisions for Haiti. And then you have all of this behind you have the US and Canada and France that actually support an illegitimate, that impose an illegitimate government and then support this illegitimate so-called government on the Haitian people. So we cannot understand this violence without understanding the root causes of this violence, and which is U.S. and Western imperialism in Haiti. And we have to know that Ariel Henry, who's an illegitimate and unelected prime minister of Haiti, was installed against the wishes of the people, against the people's solution that people came up with, the civil society. So we have to understand that. And if it's not the U.S. support for this illegitimate government, if it's not for the elite groups that allow the guns to be brought into these private ports, because Haitians don't produce their own guns. And if we don't think about the broader context of that kind of foreign interference in Haiti, we cannot understand clearly what's going on in Haiti.
Monique Clesca, is that how you see it? Foreign interference, whether it's from the UN or the US and other countries, has fueled the current situation that we're seeing there?
Absolutely. And let me add that there is right now, there has been for the last 11 years, a criminal organization that is at the head of the country. So there is, it's called PHTK, that is the name of the party, and that has been running Haiti corruption, impunity, trafficking, people trafficking, etc. So I think it's important to know this. And it is also important to know that this criminal organization functions with the gangs, because I saw lots of images of people with machine guns, etc., with the gangs, with the support of the gangs, and also with the support of white collar bandits who fuel the gang epidemic, who fuel the arms trafficking. So it's important to know this. This is not an haphazard thing. So you have the international community, you have the powers that be in Haiti, that is a criminal organization that is working with the gangs and also with the white collar economic and political sector. And what we have now is that we have the civil society organization that I'm part of has proposed a solution. We have proposed what is called the Montana Agreement the last 2 years, since August 30th, 2021, just really 1 month after Jovenel Moïse died, because we had been working on it, which is an agreement that proposes a 2 year going forward transition, a transition that can clean up the space, remove the criminal elements. But what we have is we have the international community with the UN standing there and saying, no, we do not want this. What we want is the criminal organization to continue. And I think these are important parameters to look at when one looks at the Haiti problem, whether it is the immediate problem, whether it is a systemic problem. It's important to have that as the background of criminal organization, international community, economic elite, and the gangs. So I think these are the things that are the parameters by which we can analyze and then look for the solution that we have proposed.
Brian Concannon, what do you see as the way forward then? Is there a way for the international community to work with groups in Haiti to resolve this in kind of the same way that Monique has talked about there?
There certainly is. The explanation that Monique and that Professor Pierre gave of the problem, which is basically the international community supporting a corrupt, repressive regime that's dismantling democracy, that's uncontroversial in Haiti, except for government supporters. But outside of Haiti, especially in the United Nations and especially in the United States, there is a refusal to engage with that basic reality. The solution to Haiti is democracy. I mean, that sounds simplistic, but that really is the solution. It worked in the 1990s. I lived in Haiti from 1995 and 2004. I was there for part of that time with the United Nations. I saw Haitians building their democracy. It wasn't perfect, but it wasn't gangs running the country. The international community actually supported that, and it worked. The international community knows how to support democracy. Haitians are able to establish democracy given the chance. But since 2004, when the U.S. and other members of the international community helped overthrow Haiti's democracy, we've never reached the level of security, of democracy, of education, of anything that Haiti had during its democratic interlude. And what the international community needs to do is first to just step back, to stop propping up the corrupt, repressive government, allow a transitional government that has legitimacy to come in, and then allow that government to ask how the international community can help. Because only a legitimate government has the power and the legitimacy to decide how best the international community can support Haiti's democracy. We've tried everything else. We've tried every form of supporting repression. It's time to support democracy.
Is there, just to pick up on that, Brian, is there a political will among the international community to do that right now?
Clearly not. There's a political will of the international community to do everything it can to avoid addressing the fundamental issue of their supporting a corrupt, repressive government that they installed. And it is disconcerting when you look at UN debates, when you look at debates within U.S. government, that there's an absolute refusal to recognize the reality that Haitians recognize broadly on the ground and that Professor Pierre and Monique have explained to us.
Just turning back to the current situation in Haiti itself, and if I could put this to you, Jemima Pierre, as horrific as many of these stories have been of people taking matters into their own hands, as it were, the lynchings, the bodies being burned as they retaliate against these gangs, they have galvanized many people and offered them hope, even as it's done through more violence. What do you make of that?
Well, I think people are coming together and taking care of each other, and it's problematic actually to even presenting this as vigilante violence as if it's something that is just that is just completely being done out of the context of organization. The people know that they do not have a government to support them, and the neighborhoods are banding together to protect each other. And so that's what we're seeing. And so I actually disagree with this calling this thing a civil war, because a civil war is a very different kind of set of violence against the state and non-state actors. These are a bunch of communities coming together to protect themselves from foreign armed young men. And so I think The other, I think that's an important distinction that we need to make. The other thing is going on is if you look at the UN meetings on Haiti, who represents Haiti at these meetings? It's the BNU office, the UN office in Haiti, whose mandate actually to me is illegitimate. We don't have Haitians speaking on behalf of Haitians. We have foreigners speaking on behalf of foreigners, and it's just really problematic. The other thing about violence I have to really bring up is this: no one talks about, the spectacular violence. So you can show images of Haitians carrying machetes, but you're not showing images of, the 10 to 30,000 people that were killed by the cholera that the UN occupation brought to Haiti, or the violence of the elite groups, or the violence of the US government working with the state to remove fuel subsidies and to make poverty even worse on the people. To me, the worst kinds of poverty are the worst kinds of violence are the violence of poverty and disease and the inability of the international community to leave Haiti alone. That violence is also, to me, even worse than what we're seeing in Haiti on the ground. And so I think what's going on right now, people are taking care of themselves when they don't have access to other means. And I think we should support democracy, as Brian says, in Haiti, and we need to get the international community who caused the problem out of Haiti.
Monique Clesca, is there a risk that these vigilante groups could eventually become gangs themselves? And is there a fear that they could morph into something resembling the gangs?
I am not sure that I would call them vigilante groups. And I think that that's really is a stretch. What we have is we have neighborhoods that have been under threat. People have been raped, people have been killed, people have been maimed, people have been burned. And finally, some of them have risen up and said, you know what? Enough is enough. So let's not call them vigilante groups. That's not what it is. It is a population that has suffered enough. And one day it has said, you know what? I am going to defend myself. Do not come into my house. Do not come into my neighborhood. So these are not vigilante groups. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the right to self-defense is inherent in every constitution, and it is inherent in every human rights manual. So this is what is going on. So let us be extremely clear about what is going on. Now, having said this, I think what we have at the Montana Group proposed a solution 2 years ago with a roadmap, a Haitian solution where we sat down with every political party, with civil society organizations to try to find a consensus agreement. And in this consensus agreement, the idea is to have a transition of 2 years to level the playing field so that these criminal organizations can be done away with, so that we can actually breathe easier, we can actually move forward easier. And with this, then, within this roadmap that we have, elections are part of the roadmap, but they are down the line because right now, nothing can be done in Haiti because the violence is so overwhelming, and it is a state violence. It is a terror that is instilled by the state with its people, with its gangs, etc. So I think we have to be very clear about this. And the whole wording of civil rights, a civil war also has no value in Haiti. We are not in a civil war. We are not, this is not what's happening. We have a population that has been under threat, under violence of armed, terrifying gangs. And finally, some of the population has said, you know what? I'm rising up. I don't want to accept this anymore. We don't have two factions like in Sudan, or in other places. There is no threat of civil war in Haiti. We are the population under threat by the state and by its armed gangs. So I think one has to really kind of shift. Semantics are important. The narrative is important. So we are not in a civil war. These are not vigilante groups. These are populations, some of them, who are rising up and saying, enough is enough. I'm tired of dying without doing anything. So I think one has to really kind of look at it in the framework of a population trying to defend itself, one, and secondly, civil society organizations that have proposed a Haitian solution that is called the Montana Accord. It's on the table for the last 2 years. We have tried to reach consensus, we are pushing it, and this is a solution to Haiti's some of the structural problems as well as some of the immediate problems.
Okay. I just want to give what's probably going to be the last word on this to Brian Concannon. How do you see things playing out then in the short term?
There's no short-term solution to Haiti. I'm afraid that in the short term, if things are going to continue to get worse. The optimist in me is that in at least the medium term, there'll be enough political pressure exerted on the international community, especially from people in the United States, but also France and other countries that are behind this policy of supporting the repressive regime, and that people in countries like mine will force our government to give Haitians a chance. And I'll note, just to follow up on what Monique said, when the Montana Accord put out their accord 2 years ago, the critique from the international community was that the road back to democracy they were proposing was too long, that the 2 years they proposed, just Haiti couldn't wait that long. We're now a few weeks shy of that 2 years, and not only has Haiti not slowly moved towards democracy, it's moved quickly away. And this needs to be a wake-up call to the international community that they need to give Haitians a chance. Haitians have suffered enough.
That is going to have to be the last word. Thanks very much to all three of you for being with us. Jemima Pierre, Monique Clesca, and Brian Concannon.